The Krell were the most feared species in the known galaxy. Their sleek black ships appeared without warning, emerging from quantum space like dark ghosts. 17 star systems knew their terror, and countless species trembled at the mere mention of their name. Commander Tay stood on the command deck of the Void Reaper, his flagship. His 8 eyes scanned the holographic displays showing their latest conquest, a small mining outpost in the Rigel system. The settlement had barely put up a fight. Most never did. "Another successful raid, Commander," said June, his second-in-command. June's carapace gleamed under the ship's lights as he approached with the battle report. "Minimal casualties on our side. Their defenses fell in under 20 minutes. Tay clicked his mandibles with satisfaction. The Krell had evolved as apex predators on a harsh world where only the strongest survived. Their society was built on this principle: take what you want, destroy what stands in your way. For 3 centuries, they had expanded their territory through fear and violence. No species had proven capable of mounting an effective resistance. "What resources did we secure?" Tay asked, his voice a low rumble that echoed in the chamber. "Significant quantities of rare minerals. Enough food stores to supply our colony on Krell Prime for 2 seasons. And 23 captives for the labor camps." Commander Tay nodded. It was a good haul, but smaller than he had hoped. The Krell Empire was expanding, and with it, their needs grew ever greater. "The Council grows restless," June said quietly. "They demand more conquests, more resources." Tay understood the pressure. The Krell ruling council consisted of the 12 most powerful warlords. They had elevated Tay to fleet commander because of his unbroken record of successful raids. But such favor could quickly turn to punishment if results diminished. "Show me the star charts," Tay ordered. "We need new territories to explore." The holographic display shifted, revealing an unexplored sector at the edge of the Orion Spur. Several planetary systems glowed softly, waiting to be investigated. "Our scouts have detected signals from this region," June explained. "A new species has established colonies beyond their home system. They call themselves humans." "Humans," Tay repeated the unfamiliar word. "What do we know about them?" "Very little. They appear to be newcomers to interstellar travel. Their technology is developing but not particularly advanced. They have no formal alliances with the major galactic powers." This was promising news. New species were often the easiest targets, unprepared for the realities of a dangerous galaxy. The Krell preferred to strike before a species could establish protective measures or forge defensive alliances. "Any military capability?" Tay asked. "Some basic defenses on their colonies. Their home planet appears more heavily guarded. Nothing our fleet cannot handle." Tay studied the data. The human colonies were spread across several planets and moons in a system with a yellow star. One colony in particular caught his attention, a settlement on a red planet they called Mars. It appeared to be rich in minerals and had a relatively small population. "Perfect for our first strike," Tay decided. "Plot a course for this Mars colony." As preparations began, Tay received a report from the ship's biology division. He skimmed the findings with mild interest. Humans were oxygen breathers with no natural armor, no claws, and limited sensory capabilities. They appeared physically weak compared to many species the Krell had encountered. "These humans will fall like all the others," Tay declared confidently. That night, as the Void Reaper and its accompanying vessels entered quantum space, Tay dreamed of conquest. In his long career, he had overseen raids on dozens of worlds. He had watched civilizations crumble before the might of the Krell fleet. These humans would be no different. He could not have known that the Krell Empire was about to make the greatest mistake in its bloody history. As the fleet approached the Sol system, Commander Tay prepared his warriors for what he assumed would be a routine raid. The plan was simple: strike quickly, eliminate resistance, take what they needed, and leave. It had worked countless times before. "We arrive at the human colony in 12 hours, June reported. Commander Tay's mandibles clicked in anticipation. "Prepare the strike teams. I want this operation completed with maximum efficiency." The Krell warriors readied their weapons, unaware that they were about to change the course of galactic history forever. The Martian colony of New Horizons sparkled under the red sky. 8-year-old Mina Kim loved watching the twin moons rise while the settlers went about their daily tasks. The colony had existed for only 15 years, but already it felt like home to the 5,000 humans who lived there. Mina skipped through Hydroponics Section 4, chasing after her robotic companion, a small sphere that beeped and whirred as it floated just out of reach. Her laughter echoed among the rows of vegetables growing under special lights. "Rover! Come back," she called to the robot. In her office at the colony's command center, Commander Hannah Kim reviewed security reports. As the leader of New Horizons Defense Force, she took her responsibilities seriously. Earth had only joined the galactic community 20 years ago, and humans were still establishing their place among the stars. "Commander, we've detected unusual energy readings at the edge of the system," said Lieutenant Park, her operations officer. Hannah studied the data with concern. "Could be sensor ghosts. Run a diagnostic." "Already did. The readings are real." Park hesitated. "They match nothing in our database." Hannah felt a chill. New Horizon was vulnerable, far from Earth and its main defense fleet. "Alert all security personnel. Better safe than sorry." Her thoughts turned to Mina. They had planned to watch a movie together that evening, a weekly tradition since her husband's death 2 years ago. Hannah tapped her communicator. "Mina, sweetie, where are you?" "In hydroponics with Rover, Mom. The tomatoes are getting really big." "Stay there, okay? I'll send someone to bring you to the command center." "But Mom." "No arguments, please. Just for a little while." Hannah dispatched a security officer to collect her daughter, but he never reached Hydroponics Section 4. The attack began without warning. The Krell ships materialized from quantum space, immediately jamming communications and deploying electromagnetic pulses that disabled much of the colony's technology. Alarms blared briefly before falling silent. Commander Kim barked orders as her team scrambled to respond. "Get the emergency defenses online. Evacuate civilians to the shelter." But the Krell were too efficient, too ruthless. They had done this hundreds of times before. Strike teams breached the colony's outer dome within minutes, their insect-like forms moving with terrifying speed through the corridors. In Hydroponics Section 4, little Mina heard the commotion. Rover beeped frantically, its programming detecting the danger. The robot nudged her toward a storage closet. "What's happening?" Mina whispered, suddenly afraid. She crawled inside the closet, pulling her knees to her chest. 3 Krell warriors entered hydroponics, their mandibles clicking as they communicated. They moved methodically through the room, checking for humans and valuables. Rover attempted to distract them, beeping loudly and zooming around their heads. One Krell swatted the robot away with annoyed clicks. Rover crashed against the wall, its lights flickering out. "Rover!" Mina cried before she could stop herself. The sound drew the Krell's attention immediately. With horrible swiftness, they converged on the storage closet. The door was yanked open, and Mina found herself staring into 8 alien eyes. The Krell warrior made a sound like rattling stones. He reached for the child with clawed hands. Mina screamed for her mother as she was pulled from her hiding place. At the command center, Hannah fought desperately to coordinate resistance. The colony's defenses had been designed to deter pirates or handle accidents, not repel a full military assault. Still, she led her security team with determination, managing to protect dozens of civilians. When the attack finally ended, the Krell departed as quickly as they had arrived, taking valuable resources and several captives. They left behind a shattered colony, bodies strewn through corridors, and systems in ruins. Commander Kim searched frantically for her daughter. She fought her way through damaged sections, calling Mina's name with increasing desperation. When she reached Hydroponics Section 4, she found only silence. In the corner lay Rover, damaged but still functional. Its memory core would later show the recording of what had happened. Hannah found her daughter's small body hidden beneath fallen plants. The Krell had killed her as casually as one might swat an insect, not seeing the child as valuable or worth taking captive. Commander Kim made no sound as she gathered Mina in her arms. She sat among the ruined plants, holding her daughter, her face a mask of grief that slowly transformed into something else, something terrible and cold and focused. 3 days later, when rescue ships from Earth arrived, they found Commander Kim organizing survivors and compiling detailed information about the attack. She worked with mechanical precision, sleeping only when her body gave her no choice. They were called the Krell, she told the rescue team commander. And they've made a mistake they will never live to regret. Word of the attack spread quickly across human space. Mina Kim was not the only casualty, but her death, a child killed so carelessly, became a symbol that crystallized humanity's response. The galaxy had never seen what humans could do when pushed too far. They were about to learn. Admiral Day stood before the United Earth Council, his uniform immaculate despite 3 days without sleep. The images from Mars played on the large screen behind him, the ruined colony, the bodies, and one image in particular, Commander Hannah Kim cradling her daughter's body. They killed a child, Admiral Day said, his voice calm and even. They killed many, but they killed a child. The council chamber was silent. This was humanity's first violent encounter with an alien species since joining the galactic community. Other races had warned humans about the Krell, but warnings did little to prepare them for the reality. President Son looked at each council member before speaking. "What are your recommendations, Admiral?" "Standard diplomatic procedure would be to appeal to the Galactic Assembly for sanctions against the Krell," said the foreign minister. "We could request protection." "The Assembly has proven ineffective against the Krell for centuries," interrupted Admiral Day. "And protection would only come after we surrender our resource rights." President Son nodded slowly. "What do you propose instead?" "Activate the Mina Protocol." A ripple passed through the room. The Mina Protocol had been developed as a theoretical response to existential threats, named after the ancient Earth strategist Minamoto, not the child who now gave it terrible relevance. The protocol was simple: total mobilization, total focus, and proportional response. Not revenge, but complete resolution of the threat. The Krell have raided 17 species across this sector for 300 years, Admiral Day continued. Each species acted alone. Each failed. We will not fail. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, the order spread across Earth and its colonies. Military reserves reported for duty without question. Civilian ships were converted to military support roles. Scientists turned their attention to understanding Krell biology, technology, and tactics. On space stations and planetary bases, soldiers watched footage from Mars during training. They memorized Krell anatomy charts. They learned how to fight an enemy with superior physical strength and natural armor. In orbit around Jupiter, the Earth's main shipyards worked at triple capacity. New weapons were designed specifically to penetrate Krell exoskeletons. Defense systems were reconfigured to counter Krell attack patterns. Commander Hannah Kim was brought back to Earth, where military psychologists evaluated her condition. She showed no signs of emotional distress, only a cold, calculated focus that matched the mood of the entire human military. "I want to return to active duty," she told Admiral Day during their meeting. "You will," he promised. "But first, we need your knowledge. Every detail about the Krell attack, no matter how small." Hannah's information, combined with data from Rover's memory core, provided crucial insights. The Krell had patterns. They had weaknesses. Most importantly, they had never faced an opponent who studied them so thoroughly before striking back. In the Galactic Assembly, representatives from other species warned humanity against retaliation. "The Krell are too powerful," said the Tellurian ambassador. "Your species is young. Accept your losses. In time, they may lose interest in your territories." "Thank you for your concern," the human diplomat replied with a thin smile. "We'll take it under advisement." 3 months after the Mars attack, Admiral Day stood on the bridge of the UES Righteous, Earth's newest battleship. Around him, a fleet of 50 vessels prepared to depart. All ships report ready, Admiral, said his executive officer. Signal the fleet, Day ordered. Operation First Response is now active. The Krell outpost orbiting Tau Ceti had stood for 70 years. It served as a forward base for raids on 3 nearby systems and housed almost 2,000 Krell warriors and technicians. They had no warning when the human fleet arrived. The attack did not follow conventional patterns. Instead of targeting defense systems first, the humans disabled the quantum communications array, cutting the outpost off from the Krell Empire. Then they methodically destroyed every escape vessel. Only then did they turn their weapons on the outpost itself. Commander Jean, the outpost leader, watched in confusion as his defenses fell one by one. The Krell had faced resistance before, even coordinated military responses, but nothing like this precision. Nothing with this calm efficiency. When the first human soldiers boarded the station, the Krell fought fiercely. They were naturally stronger, with built-in weapons that had terrified other species for generations. But the humans had studied their enemy. They knew exactly where to aim, how to move, what tactics would work. They fought in perfect coordination, without fear or hesitation. Commander Jean was the last Krell standing in the command center when a human officer entered. She removed her helmet, revealing a face he would have recognized from the Mars raid if the Krell had bothered to document their victims. Commander Hannah Kim, United Earth Forces, she said quietly. My daughter's name was Mina. Jean raised his claws in the universal gesture of surrender. Tell your leaders, Hannah said as her soldiers secured the Krell commander. Tell them what happened here. Tell them this is just the beginning. The message reached the Krell High Command 3 days later, delivered by a single escape pod that the humans had intentionally spared. Across the galaxy, news of the human victory spread quickly. Species that had suffered under Krell raids for generations watched in astonishment. The humans hadn't just fought back, they had won decisively, without a single casualty of their own. And they were just getting started. Retri-SF Supreme Commander Jean stood before the Krell High Council, his posture rigid despite his exhaustion. The 12 warlords stared down at him with their multiple eyes, mandibles clicking in agitation as he delivered his report. 3 more outposts have gone silent, Jean said. The human forces are moving methodically through our territory, disabling our communications before we can respond. Impossible, hissed Counselor Mook, the eldest of the warlords. These humans are newcomers to space. Their technology is inferior. Their bodies are soft and weak. Jean displayed the battle recordings that had been recovered. The council chamber fell silent as they watched human soldiers in sealed armor moving with practiced efficiency through Krell defenses. The humans fought as a perfect unit, covering each other, exploiting weaknesses the Krell didn't know they had. They studied us, Jean explained. Every attack is precisely targeted. They know our biology, our tactics, our technology. The war minister approached with a data tablet. We've lost contact with the mining colony on Rigel 4. That's the 12th facility this month. Jean felt a sensation unfamiliar to most Krell, fear. In 300 years of expansion, the Empire had faced resistance, even occasional defeats, but nothing like this. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were systematically dismantling the Krell's presence in the sector. What of our main battle fleet? Asked Counselor Veek. Engaged near the Sirius system, replied the War Minister. The humans lured them into an asteroid field rigged with gravity mines. We lost 40% of our ships before retreating. Jean had commanded that retreat himself, watching in disbelief as human vessels half the size of Krell warships darted between asteroids, firing with perfect accuracy at vital systems. The humans didn't waste shots. They didn't waste lives. Every move seemed calculated for maximum effect with minimum resources. We should negotiate, Jean suggested, knowing the words were dangerous. Krell did not negotiate from positions of weakness. As expected, the council erupted in angry clicks and hisses. Never. Counselor Mook slammed his clawed fist down. We will gather our forces, concentrate our fleet. The humans have expanded too quickly, spread themselves too thin. Jean knew this assessment was wrong. The humans weren't overextended, they were advancing systematically, securing each position before moving to the next. Their strategy showed patience, discipline, and terrifying focus. 2 days later, Jean stood on the command deck of the Empire's flagship, the Claw of Dominance. The massive vessel led a fleet of over 200 ships, the largest concentration of Krell military power in decades. Their destination, the human colony of Europa, orbiting the gas giant they called Jupiter. "This will break their will," said Sub-Commander Lee, Jin's new second-in-command. "Once we destroy their outer colony, they will understand the price of challenging the Krell." Jean wasn't so certain. Something about the humans' behavior suggested they had anticipated this very response. His suspicions were confirmed when they arrived at Jupiter. The Europa colony appeared undefended, its shields down, its orbital platforms empty. A trap, Jean realized too late. From behind Jupiter's many moons came the human fleet. Not scattered or disorganized, but in perfect formation. And behind them, something the Krell had never seen before: massive cylinders that began to unfold in space, revealing what appeared to be reflective surfaces angled toward the sun. "Energy readings are off the scale," reported a sensor officer, panic in his voice. The human ships moved to surround the Krell fleet, not engaging directly but cutting off retreat paths. Then the massive reflector arrays focused the solar energy into concentrated beams that sliced through Krell vessels with surgical precision. "They're targeting engines and weapons," Jean observed. "They don't want to destroy us. They want to disable us." Within 40 minutes, the battle was over. The mighty Krell fleet hung powerless in space, most ships without propulsion or weapons. The casualties were minimal, another departure from normal space combat. A communication request came through on all channels. Jean accepted it, and a human face appeared on the main screen. He recognized her immediately from intelligence briefings. Commander Hannah Kim, whose child had been killed on Mars. "Supreme Commander Jean," she said calmly. "Your fleet is disabled. Your empire is in retreat on all fronts. I am authorized to offer terms for your surrender." Jean looked around at his bridge crew, at the disabled ships floating helplessly around them. In all of Krell history, no one had ever offered them terms. They had always been the ones dictating surrender conditions to others. "Why haven't you destroyed us?" Jean asked. "You have the power." Commander Kim's expression didn't change. "Because we're not like you. We don't kill without purpose. Your surrender will save lives, both human and Krell." Jean understood then what made humans different. Not their technology or physical capabilities, but something more fundamental. The galaxy had misunderstood them completely. Humans weren't weak because they valued peace, they simply preferred it. When pushed to war, they brought a terrible focus and efficiency that the Krell, for all their natural weapons and aggression, couldn't match. "I will hear your terms," Jean said. As the surrender negotiations began, news traveled quickly through Krell space. The undefeated Empire had met its match in a species that, until recently, they hadn't even known existed. Commander Hannah Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance as the Krell homeworld came into view. The blue-green planet looked peaceful from this distance, its 3 moons casting soft shadows across vast oceans. Hard to believe it had produced one of the most feared species in the galaxy. "Entering standard orbit," announced the helm officer. "The Krell High Council is requesting confirmation of our arrival." Hannah nodded. "Inform them we'll begin the formal proceedings in 1 hour." She stepped away from the view screen, finding a quiet moment to collect her thoughts. 1 year had passed since the Mars attack. 1 year since she had held Mina's broken body in her arms. The grief remained, a constant companion, but it no longer consumed her. There was too much work to be done. Admiral Day joined her at the observation window. "The fleet is in position. All systems report ready." "Thank you, Admiral." Hannah studied the older man's face. He had led the human forces with brilliant strategy, coordinating the campaign that had brought the mighty Krell Empire to its knees in less than a year. "I still think you should be the one to sign the treaty." Day shook his head. "It has to be you. The Krell respect you more than anyone. And he hesitated, it feels right, considering what you lost. Hannah thought of Mina. Her daughter had loved space, loved the stars. She had dreamed of exploring new worlds someday. She would have turned 9 next week, Hannah said quietly. The Admiral placed a hand briefly on her shoulder, then moved away to prepare for the ceremony. The Great Hall of Krell Prime had been built to intimidate visitors. Its towering ceilings, harsh lighting, and throne-like seats for the council members all served to reinforce Krell dominance. Today, however, those thrones were empty. The council members stood on the floor, eye level with the human delegation. Supreme Commander Jean led the Krell representatives. His once shiny carapace now bore the dull markings of defeat, but he carried himself with dignity. Commander Kim, he greeted her with the formal clicks that translator devices rendered into human speech. We are prepared to finalize the terms of surrender. Hannah nodded. Let's proceed. The terms had been negotiated over several months. They were fair but absolute. The Krell would withdraw from all conquered territories. Their military would be reduced to defensive capabilities only. A human monitoring station would remain in orbit around Krell Prime for 20 years to ensure compliance. Most importantly, the Krell would pay reparations to all species they had raided, including substantial compensation to the families of those killed on Mars. There is one additional term, Hannah said when they reached the end of the formal document. One not in the written agreement. Jin's mandibles clicked with concern. What additional demand does Earth make? Not a demand. An offer. Hannah activated a holographic display showing educational and cultural exchange programs. We want your children to learn alongside the children of other species, including humans. We want the next generation of Krell to understand the galaxy as a community, not as prey. Jin's multiple eyes blinked in confusion. You would educate our young? After what we did to yours? Because of what you did to ours, Hannah corrected him. This war ends today. But without change, another will start in a generation. This is how we break the cycle. The Krell leaders conferred among themselves, mandibles clicking rapidly. Finally, Jean turned back to Hannah. We accept this unusual term. When the treaty was signed, a signal went out to all human ships in orbit. Not to fire weapons, as the Krell had feared, but to release thousands of small lights into the atmosphere, creating a spectacular display visible across the planet. What is the meaning of this? Jean asked, watching the lights dance across the sky. On Earth, we release lanterns to honor those who have passed, Hannah explained. Today, we remember all who died in this conflict, Krell and human alike. 3 years later, Hannah walked through the memorial garden on Mars. The colony of New Horizon had been rebuilt, larger and stronger than before. At its center stood the garden, where a small statue of Mina had been placed among flowering trees brought from Earth. Children played nearby, human children mostly, but also a few young Krell, their softer carapaces marking them as juveniles. Part of the first educational exchange program. Hannah stopped before Mina's statue. It captured her daughter perfectly. The curious eyes, the gentle smile, the slightly crooked ponytail she had always worn. A young Krell child approached, placing what appeared to be a handmade drawing at the base of the statue. Is this the human child? The young Krell asked in carefully practiced English. Yes, Hannah replied. Her name was Mina. Our teacher said she was important. That her death changed the galaxy. Hannah knelt down to meet the child's eyes. It wasn't her death that changed things. It was how we responded to it. The Krell child considered this, head tilted. My parent fought in the war. They said humans are different. That you could have destroyed us but chose not to. We wanted justice, not extinction, Hannah explained. There's a difference. As Hannah left the garden, she passed a group of diplomats from various species discussing new trade agreements. The galaxy had been transformed in unexpected ways. With the Krell Empire's fall, other aggressive powers had scaled back their activities. Species that had been isolated by fear now engaged openly in commerce and cultural exchange. The plaque beneath Mina's statue read simply, "For Mina, and all the children." Never again. Throughout the galaxy, a new wisdom spread: humans were not the strongest species, nor the most technologically advanced. But they possessed something rare and valuable: the capacity for both terrible focus in war and profound mercy in victory. Be kind to humans, the saying went. Respect them. And never, ever harm their young.